Depression and suicide are serious issues that affect many people. If you're feeling alone or hopeless, know that you are not alone. There are people who care about you and want to help. If you're struggling with depression or suicidal thoughts, there are resources available to help you. The South African Depression and Anxiety Group offers a 24-hour toll-free emergency helpline for suicide crisis support. Call them on 0800 567 567. Remember, you're not alone. There is hope and help is available.
A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Mzansi Affairs. You are with me, Moeketsi, my money, right here on Mzansi Affairs. And please do not forget to follow us on our social media platforms. We are shared online on each and every social media platform. Do make sure that you engage with us. And you can also send your voice note on our WhatsApp line, which is open. It's 061 524 7758. Right now, it's 3 minutes past 12, and I am not alone. I have my fellow co-host Mr. JB on the call, which I'm gonna let and give him time to introduce himself. Mr. JB.
Good morning, Mo. Good morning to our viewers and good morning to our listeners as well.
How are you doing, sir, this afternoon?
I can't complain, Mo. And how are you that side?
I am very good without concerns. And straight into our main headline for today is the load shedding and load reduction. So I'm just going to let people join the conversation and make sure that they share their comments and tell us what do they really think, about the differences about load reduction and load shedding. Whoever who has the knowledge about what is happening, please share it with us on our social media platforms. We are Share Online. We are live on TikTok right now. We are live on Facebook. We are also live on YouTube. But before we go further, Mr. JP, I also have a media statement that was released by the Minister of Police this morning, in which I'm going to share my screen with the people at home and go through the screen and what the Police Minister, Mr. Senzo Mchunu, said today this morning. So the minister, the media statement reads as follows, as you can see right now on the screen. Minister of Police condemns corruption within the SAPS, which is something that we spoke about, the corruption amongst the SAPS. So for immediate release, the Minister of Police, Mr. Senzo Mchunu, notes with concern and disappointment the issue of corruption involving members of the South African Police Service. A recent case involving 4 police officers from the Crime Intelligence Unit, alongside an employee of First National Bank and a civilian, has cast a dark shadow over the integrity of law enforcement agencies. On the 30th of January 2024, a complainant reported a shocking incident where individuals dressed in civilian clothes and purporting to be police officers approached him. These individuals took him to Fairlands SAPS, where they falsely claimed to be investigating a fraud case against him. The complainant was then subjected to physical assault and was coerced into allowing these individuals to access his home in 4 ways. Once there, his phones were confiscated and a sum of 180,000 was transferred from his account into theirs. After this heinous act, they abandoned the complainant near his other property in Rodiport. An investigation was swiftly launched, leading to the identification of the suspects involved. All 6 suspects have since been arrested and appeared in the Randburg Magistrate Court yesterday on the 12th of August. In expressing his sentiments, Minister Mchunu stated the following. These are his words. Let me be unequivocally clear. Corruption within our police services will not be tolerated. The actions of these individuals are a betrayal of the public's trust and a violation of the very principle that the SAPS stands for: honor, integrity, and service. The worst thing is that these are members of Crime Intelligence Unit. We condemn their we condemn their criminal activity in the strongest terms they deserve. Such conduct is not only criminal but deeply dishonorable. We will not allow any further erosion of confidence that the public has in law enforcement agencies. As a matter of agency, internal disciplinary processes will be instituted against the police officers. As the Minister of Police, I assure the public that we will continue to root out corruption wherever it may exist within our ranks. We will remain committed to building a police service that is trusted by the people it serves, and we will not rest until justice is served. I would like to commend the investigating officers who worked diligently on these cases, ensuring that those responsible are brought to justice. I would also like to commend the affected member of the public who reported this matter. The fight against corruption is a shared responsibility, and we urge to the public to continue reporting any suspicious or criminal activities, particularly those involving law enforcement officers. This incident poses a challenge to us to scrutinize the recruitment of police officers, since these officers are constables. So that was a media statement that was released by the minister, Mr. JB, earlier this morning. That there are corrupt officials that have been arrested. They found that they were in part of this criminal activity that happened. So it's the same thing that the minister was speaking about when he briefed the public with the stats in the Umkukundlovu. I don't know if you remember when we spoke about that last week, when we touched on the Umkukundlovu district. He spoke about making sure that he will sweep the street clean and make sure that their structure is a structure that is very safe for the people in South Africa. But I love the words that he uses, that we should continue working together as the public and the police officers in South Africa. So that was the media statement and the headline and the breaking news that just got in. But our main headline for today is load reduction and load shedding. We just want to know from you guys at home, what do you really think is load reduction, the new load shedding, or is it load reduction better than load shedding? We want to hear from you. But right now, let me go to you, Mr. JB, and ask you if you really know the depth and understanding about the difference of load reduction and load shedding.
I would say that I'm not quite sure that maybe I'll define it in a sense where I'll say that everyone understands that it's what really mean actually. So, but I feel like it's just reshuffling of word or recycling of word, But at the same time, in the basis, we experiencing the same thing, because when I check how Minister of Electricity, Mr. Ramkhopa, talking about load reduction, he was talking about it's a circle of municipality, individual household, and ESCOM as a whole. So he didn't define that much that load reduction term, but I feel it's the same thing. It's just that now they are based in individual and municipalities and how they deal with their electricity internally. That's how I think.
Thank you for that. But, to bring the light to people who are at home and listening, I'm just going to read aloud, the difference between the load shedding and the load reduction. I just want you to listen carefully. And, if you have any differences or any, definition of what it is based on what we have found out, please do make sure that you share it with us on our social media platforms. So here it says load shedding is a controlled process where electricity is cut in parts of the country for specific periods during the day due to insufficient capacity to generate electricity. Load shedding is a controlled process where electricity is cut in parts of the country for specific periods during the day due to insufficient capacity to generate electricity. We know that Minister Ramokgopa came forward and we celebrated a successful, days without load shedding. That means the generation of electricity has been enough, and the ESCOM's executives has been doing good jobs. And then we are coming to load reduction. We need to understand what is load reduction and what is load shedding. As we just read to you, that is a control process where electricity is cut in parts of the country for specific periods during the day due to insufficient capacity to generate electricity. And then coming to load reduction, on the other hand, it refers to switching off power in localized areas where illegal connections causes overload and damage infrastructure. Load reduction refers to switching off power in localized areas where illegal connection cause overload and damage infrastructure. It's something that we are going to be discussing with you right here on Mzansi Affairs. So please do stay with us and stay in touch on our social media platform and talk with us, engage with us on our socials. We are Share Online right here. So we are just going to take a short break, and then when we come back, we are going to cover the minister media statement that he released yesterday, talking about the amount of capacity that they have generated and the means of fighting load shedding and load reduction. So please stay with us right here on Mzansi Affairs, brought to you by Share Online. We will be right back after the break.
You are able to Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're still watching Mzansi Affairs with me, Moeketsi, and my fellow co-host on the line, Mr. Jabulani. You are watching Share Radio, brought to you by Share Online right here. If you would like to engage with us on our social media platforms, please visit them. We are Share Online on Facebook, we are Share Online on YouTube, and do make sure that you subscribe for more current affairs to stay informed about what is happening right now in our country. As before the break, we spoke and explained to you and raised the differences between the load shedding and load reduction. As we know that Minister Josiento Ramokgopa yesterday released a media statement, speaking about the phenomenon of load reduction and those who need to be protected away from it. I think we believe that we need to understand why other houses are affected by these load reduction and load shedding. Right now, I just want you to take you to a recording from the minister's media briefing that happened yesterday, and so that we can have a closely listening to what he said and what should be done. These are the words of the minister himself. You are able to minimize, if you like, collateral damage to the extent that is possible. What do I mean by collateral damage?
There are people who are very obedient, diligent customers who pay their monthly bills diligently, very religious in paying those monthly accounts, but they are also affected by the phenomenon of load reduction. So it's important that we protect everyone, but also ensure that we protect the poor households, those who genuinely can't afford because of economic constraints, a number of reasons, and of course they don't have the means and the ability to pay their monthly account. So it's important that we are able to protect those. We also know that now,
Mr. JP, taking from the minister's words, I just want to hear from you. What do you really think, with what he just said right now? What are your thoughts right now with what the minister has just said?
Let me start here more. Let me talk about Mr. Ramaphosa. He's one of intellectual, and he's got a good academical background, so I came to understand why the president brought him as a minister of electricity when the country had a crisis, so there was a lot of complaints around the issue of load shedding, and now we've got load reduction, so coming to understanding that he has done a lot, in case of the issue of load shedding. Our country, we were in crisis in most of the cases, but now it looks better, and it's going for a better direction. So they've got issues that they're dealing with from the point of perspective that there are people that are paying well their accounts, there are people that they are not paying well, there are people that they are doing illegal connections and a lot of things, so they're trying to separate those people, but they are coming together in a number of factors that everyone need electricity at the end of the day. So it's much difficult for him as an individual and as a minister of electricity to understand how to deal with such issues, because if we talk about load reduction, it's something that they wanted to do for people that necessarily don't pay their bills when it comes to electricity, or they are doing illegal connections. But it comes to affect the others as well that are doing well in such areas. So that's my understanding when coming to that point. But I think there are a number of issues and that we're going to outline and understand as we go further when it comes to issue of load shedding and load reduction as a country.
Yeah, because I think the main underlying things that he mentioned here is poor households and the means, of carrying those who do not have the means of having electricity, and then protecting them, because he mentions that in monthly basis we need to protect those who pay their electric bill in monthly basis. But now it comes back to say the people that we are trying to protect, they are the ones who are straining, the generation and the power plants that are existing, because he also mentioned in the statement that a further 2,500 megawatts is expected back by the end of August. That means a lot has been lost, so reduction is something that shows that there is a problem in terms of illegal connection. There is a problem in terms of people not buying monthly electric bill. So it's something that they need to go back and make sure that they understand in terms of what is happening as of right now, because I just want us to go through his words, because he spoke yesterday. But for somebody who doesn't understand and for somebody who is at home and not understanding what is going on when they are faced by load reduction, because a lot of people do not understand. And sometimes you would find that they will tell people that the reason there is no electricity is because of cable theft or something, outside of explaining to them that you guys, we are switching off because of illegal connections. They are straining the power plants and we need to produce more generational capacity to households. So it brings me back to, the 2,500 megawatts that he spoke about, in which I want to read some of the paragraph that he said, so that we can get a clear understanding in the brief that he gave yesterday. So right here on the screen, we see that he said we are expecting the Medupi unit 4, to give us 800 megawatts. So let me do this so that people can get a clear view of what I am seeing. So I hope this is clear enough for you to see and read. So if you can't see, let me just read it for you to get a clear understanding of what he said. We are expecting Medupi Unit 4 to give us 800 megawatts and to fire up Kusile Unit, which is another 800 megawatts. We are hoping to get an extension of life of Kuber Unit 2. We are not complacent. We are doing everything by the book and we are still optimistic about getting that extension of life. It will give us an additional 980 megawatts. We do expect that by the end of August, just from Eskom fleet, we should be getting an additional 2,500 megawatts, he said. So it also brings us that from as much as you say that he has a very good educational background, it takes us to understanding that whenever he gave those media brief and media press, he told us that they are working to ensure that load shedding is no more. But now, what is it that brings load reduction, and how good can they work around it? So I just want to know your thoughts around load reduction. Is it something that is going to end in the near future, or it's something that we have to get used to?
I think Mr. Ramukupa is very strategic. More, in one of these speeches, he started complimenting the men and the women that are diligent in issue of resolving the problem of electricity in the country. He mentioned sun and wind speed, is the solution in his energy plan. So the issue of reduction in poverty, taking in a high cost of living, is expanding the flow and social wages in fresh water and expansion of a zero rate in vet and food. So being in the industrializations of our economy is one of the key factors that we know that he was looking at in one of speeches when he addressed the media. Fighting the poverty of the high cost of living, low income household, is one of the things. So they must make sure that electricity is affordable, reflecting of all cost of customers is one of the things. So he's an intellectual, so it shows that when he cover his speech in every time, he makes sure that he speaks language that we understand. But in most of cases, when you talk about megawatts and producing those electricity numbers, most of the people, they get lost. But what people want to see on the ground is to see their lights on. So he tried by all means to come down and explain to us what's really happening. So we're learning each and every day and coming to understand that what's happening on the background of electricity. How do we produce electricity? How does electricity come to any household? And as individuals. So those are the things that, as a minister of electricity or energy, at the end of the day, is guiding us and understand. So as well as communities and as individuals, we understand that what must we do right, so that as a country we mustn't find ourselves in a shallow space that we cry about electricity. So there is a lot of things that we need to understand, and he's trying by all means to explain each and every day. But this are one of the conversations that will lead us to a better place at the end of the day, if people are coming in, engaging with us, and give a clear understanding and a better view of why is it happening like this in our country. Why are we having a load reduction, even if it sounds like it's a shuffle of word of load shedding. But he try by all means to explain furthermore, and give us understanding at the end of the day, so we can have a clear and a better view of everything as we talk about at the end of the day.
Yeah, indeed. Speaking about a clearer view, I mean, it spikes a debate about, the money and the budget that is allocated to municipalities to fix these illegal connection and make sure that, people do not fall again to the same trap of not having electricity for the longest time. I mean, SALGA, for instance, the South African Local Government Association is the leader into making sure that the budget cuts and the budget that are given to municipalities to make sure that the people always have electricity. That's where the most question needs to come from, that where is the money going, and is the money allocated in rightful places, that people do not experience this kind of problems that comes with load shedding and load reduction. Because with load shedding, we saw that as much as population is growing, a certain number of houses are getting affected, because we are going to hear from him after we come from the break, which he spoke about the number of houses that deserve to get a basic free basic electricity. It's something that spikes up the debate and the talks that as much as the population is still growing, the demand is also going to grow, because now the reduction of the load is really having an impact and the effect on a lot of people. So please guys, tell us more, and if you would like to share more about Mr. Hosientsu Ramakgopa or the load shedding and the load reduction, tell us what you really think and your views about what is happening, because we saw him yesterday coming and telling us about the megawatts that are needed and expected to happen in the end of August. So when we come back, we are going to touch on the SALGA, the South African Local Government Association, and also the words from the minister himself telling us about the progresses and the processes that they are through as Eskom to make sure that things like load reduction are scrapped and people get to live freely with the electricity that they need. Right now, let us take a short break, and then when we come back, we are going to discuss more further the load shedding and load reduction, also the speech and the media press release by the Minister of Electricity, Mr. Hosientsu Ramakgopa. Please stay with us and do make sure that you follow us and engage with us on social media. We are Share Online. We are live on TikTok, live on YouTube. We are also live on Facebook. Please just give me a moment, and then we go to a break, and then we come back. 28 minutes up until we hit 1 o'clock, and you're still with me, Moeketsi, my man, and Mr. Jabulani, right here on Mzansi Affairs, Share Radio, brought to you by Share Online. So we are still discussing our main headline of the day, which is load shedding and load reduction, understanding the differences, as we saw the Minister of Electricity, Dr. Khosiyenso Ramohopa, speaking about the phenomenon of load reduction and the ways that they're coming with at Eskom to make sure that the load reduction ends and people get to have electricity as a daily and a basic need. So please join us on our social media platforms. We are Share Online on each and every social media platform. So right now, let me recap and go back to what the minister said. Just give you the voice of his media briefing, and speaking about leaving no one behind in the scourge of load reduction. And this is what the minister had to say.
You are able to minimize, if you like, collateral damage to the extent that is possible. What do I mean by collateral damage? There are people who are very obedient, diligent customers who pay their monthly bills diligently, very religious in paying those monthly accounts, but they are also affected by the phenomenon of load reduction. So it's important that we protect everyone, but also ensure that we protect the poor households, those who genuinely can't afford because of economic constraints, a number of reasons, and of course they don't have the means and the ability to pay their monthly account. So it's important that we are able to protect those. We also know that now.
Indeed, that was Minister Ramohopa speaking about protecting those who are living, beyond the poverty line, into making sure that they, afford the right amount of electricity. So right now, let us move to another brief that he gave the media yesterday about the updates on the electricity related matters. So this was him yesterday in the media brief, and this is what the minister had to say.
Basic electricity that we have observed, at least we know that there's about 10 million households in this country that qualifies for free basic electricity. But what we know is that only 2 million are receiving this free basic electricity as a result of challenges on the municipal side. And that has to do largely with the rate at which they are registering the indigents on their indigent register so that they can benefit from this free basic electricity. And yet municipalities are receiving this grant. So I think it's important that we are able to resolve this question so that we are able to protect the poor. As the President has mentioned, one of the priorities of the 6th, 7th administration, priority number 2, is fighting poverty and also the escalating cost of living. And the cost of utilities is a big part of household spend in this country. So we are addressing that question to ensure that the 8 million plus households that are entitled to this free basic electricity that are not getting it, and yet this grant is given to municipalities and also to Eskom, gets to benefit from that. We are going to resolve that with SALGA. I must say that we have found that in the presidency of Mr. Stofile, the president of SALGA, we've got an excellent ally, and we are more than confident with the leadership of local government that we are going to resolve this question.
So I think that is what, Minister touched on, Mr. JP. But, to break it down to people who didn't hear. So working hand in hand with SALGA, which is the South African Local Government Association, they have found out that the money and the grant that was supposed to go to certain municipalities, for them to get the free basic electricity, has been misused, and has not got to certain, municipalities. So he just mentioned that out of the 10 million houses that's supposed to get the free basic electricity, only 2 million are getting that free basic electricity. So we are left with 8 million houses, and the question arises now that where did the money of the 8 million remaining households in South Africa go to? I just want to get your thoughts around that, Mr. JP.
More, there is a lot of things happening around that. If you can hear what he's saying, it's a man that is attention to detail. It shows that he follow ups in everything that he does. That's one of the reasons that is there as a Minister of Electricity, and to resolve issues and the problems that we have as a country. So if we go back a little bit more, there is something that I want to say when it comes to politics and understanding why are we having these issues today. When ANC start to win, or when they were doing their manifestos back then, they used to say free education, free electricity to our people. So the moment ANC win, the country, people from locations, in most cases, they stop paying electricity, in resulting of them owing much municipalities, because they own a lot of money that they can't even afford to pay right now. So they end up in such space that every time there are people that are cutting their electricity, so which leads to illegal connections and a lot of things. But so what he's saying, there is a grant, to show that government is really involved, for which is supposed to sustain 10 million houses, and now we are only having 2 millions. So it shows that 8 million it's in shortage. So where does the money go to? So he's trying his best and his level best to follow up in these issues. So that if you have this kind of issues, you're not working alone, and you need to follow protocols. So I think if he brief media every day and talking about this, so it shows that he's follow upping in everything. So we'll get solution very soon, and there will be people that will be accountable and answer those questions, because there is a grant, and even the public is clear now. We know what's supposed to do, what's supposed to happen when it comes to electricity part and people that need to receive that such grant. So it's a long thing. It's not something that will end tomorrow, and it's something that we know as a country that we're facing right now. So the issue of the load shedding and reduction of electricity, it comes from that. So we have answers and basis to complain as a country, and to understand and to follow up to our leaders. What is it happening? Why are we facing such challenges? So I think he's doing a great job, and as we go forward, I say that we will get a number of issues that we need to resolve as a country and as individual, as the households.
Indeed, we have to get the solutions that are going to, get a lot of people on the move, because a lot of people are getting affected by the load reduction. So on Facebook, we have Tandolu Luzanondalana saying, load shedding is better because when electricity is going and coming back. Load reduction, it's something that's way out of proportion, and it is very great to see that there are concerned citizens, and they need to be educated about what is happening, because you have people complaining but not knowing how does these power grid work, the amount of electricity that you need to use in your whole household. So right now, let us go through a simple meaning of what is the power grid and what threatens the stability of the grid. So right here on me, they say the grid is made up of 3 building blocks, which is generation, the amount of electricity, and then the transmission that is going to need whenever it is distributed, in which is the last one, distribution. So the grid is made up of 3 building blocks: the generation, transmission, and distribution. The generation consists of power stations or plants that generate electricity. Examples of these are newly built Kusile and Medupi power station. South Africa has a generation capacity of approximately 58 gigawatts, enough to power 6 million kettles concurrently, most made up of Eskom's coal burning power plants. Eskom's share of this is a generation capacity of 44 gigawatts, which is 38 gigawatts is from coal and powered stations. So right now we have to look at what threatens the stability on the grid. When generation can't keep up with the demand, unfortunately due to backlog of maintenance of older Eskom plants and mismanagement during the development of newer plants, the generation capacity of Eskom's often dwindles, with an average plant ages of 40 years. Breakdown and maintenance have amounted to as much as 20 gigawatts loss in a generation capacity. I mean, right now we are looking at dealing with old plants, old power plants that still need a lot of money to be maintained each and every time, because we can see that the population also of people is increasing daily and daily. So it just become beyond the borders, so people have to understand why we have things like your load reduction, because the more you have people on this grid, on these Eskom plants, because in 1994 when the ruling government, which is the ANC, was told and was advised to build more power plants, they decided that they're going to use the existing ones, and now the existing ones are giving problems, and we only have 2, which is Kusile and Medupi. Stations like Kubech, they have been there, for as long as, more than 40 to 50 years. So it's plants and power, it's plants that need to be maintained, and they need a lot of money. So the reduction comes there, and you can see that 20 gigawatts in loss, it results in a very long time without electricity. So I think understanding the grid, Mr. JB, you would have people using electricity in a manner that, it saves us from a lot of problems. So, but how do we solve this scourge of load reduction as citizens? Because we need to work hand in hand with the government. We need to work hand in hand with Eskom's executive to make sure that we have a smooth running country without electricity cuts. So I just want to know from you how important it is for the public, to be well informed about the usage of electricity.
I think more there is a lot. We need to educate our people and understand now what's really happening around that. But what I would say, we have experienced a great expansion of generation of electricity under Mr. Ramokopa. He was fall behind, but he's catching up each and every day. So it simply means that when we're talking about the grid and a lot of stuff that is happening in electricity, if people they can try to manage what they use in a household, something like big things like geysers, they must always on, they need to know that if you're cooking, you mustn't boil water from the pot. You need to use a kettle so that you can make it easier, something like that. There are a few things and few elements of the basics that we need to teach our people how to save electricity and how to use electricity when it's important, because it's very hard when you living in the dark because you are in the load shedding or reduction, something like that. So it's something that you need to teach your people, that if you save electricity, is gonna help you, at the end of the day. So some of the things that Mr. Ramakgopa need to look at, it's a coal industry. If we do our coal station, we make sure that we revamp them and we make sure that they produce electricity, because they are complaining that coal it causes pollution. That's why they don't want to use it. But you find that there are coals that are exporting it from the country to outside country, and those people that advise us not to use coal, they are using the coal to generate their electricity. So we need to fix our coal stations as well. So it's going to help a lot of Eskom industry to produce more electricity to our people, because we grow each and every day as people. If you can check now at the location, even if there is a house, one household, there is a lot of back rooms at the back, which means it taking much. One household it taking much from the grid. So it says because of the back room, so it shows that we need to understand that our country is getting bigger, and then so we need to make sure that we save electricity for a better life.
Indeed, saving electricity, for a better life, so that the millions of users in this country can get the benefit of using electricity. But we know that the underlying thing is the collateral damage that can happen to the citizens of South Africa. It's very important for them, to know that what is it that is going to happen, when the grid collapses. So I think it's a message that all of the people out there need to know that guys, please use electricity responsibly, because a lot of people are getting affected by the usage that other people are actually finding themselves in. As we see that load reduction now, I'm speaking about something that I know, because right now in extension 2, there are people that are divided, from those who are non-paying customers. So it's things that we see. We have people who pay electricity, who use it responsibly, and we have people who do not have electricity and they don't use it responsibly. So right now, I just wanna, before we close and before we conclude the show, I just want to read, an extract right here from the article. So the question is, what happens if the grid collapses? So let us go through it, how it reads. So on the screen you can see when they say when no generation is happening, the grid collapses and there's a blackout. This has happened before in various other countries. For example, the 2019 blackout in Argentina left 48 million users without power for most of a day, while 55 million North Americans were left in the dark for a fortnight in 2003. These examples are dwarfed by the 2012 blackout in India, which affected 400 million users. To avoid collapse of the grid, Eskom, which controls the grid frequency from a national control center in Johannesburg, has put in place a severe form of demand management for situation in which demand starts to outstrip supply. It imposes a series of planned power cuts called load shedding to reduce demand. If the situation is extremely bad, it institutes stage 4 load shedding, which means 4 gigawatts of the total demand is cut on a rolling schedule. A total collapse of the system would mean that the country and some countries in the region would be without power for extended periods rather than 2 to 4 hour periods that are currently in the norm. It hasn't happened in South Africa yet because of Eskom's well-coordinated and responsive demand management and good fortune. Such a collapse of the grid would require a generation plants being brought back online in synchronization with the 50 hertz, which means they have to be ramped up and added one by one. The reconnection of all generators after a blackout would probably take 2 weeks or more, leaving large parts of the country and some neighboring countries without electricity for days and or more as plants and limited critical demand are gradually turned on. So I think it's something that the public needs to be alerted and informed about it, Mr. JP. So in conclusion, I think it is very important for people to understand that the worst is still to come, so they just don't have to panic, because Eskom is telling people that inside there are well coordinated and responsive demand management and also a good fortune for the people of South Africa. I don't know if you have anything in conclusion to the public, so that we can get rid of the scourge of things like load shedding and load reduction.
We are living in a economic constraint more, and but the fact that we have Mr. Ramokgopa on board, and then he seemed to be driving the train right. So if you check, he came with a uniform solutions, and then he's coming with a great intervention in all sectors, making sure that comprehensive industrial and policing SEE are in measure solutions. So we are in the right track. If we can maintain, and then as a country as well, we make sure that we support our leaders in fighting this, and we make sure that private sectors they didn't sabotage the Eskom as they used to be at first, so that they can take the stake and make sure that they deliver as a private sector, so that certain individual benefits, you understand. So if we can run away from those things, and then we work as a country, and then we face head on in load shedding and load reduction, we're gonna win at the end of the day.
Indeed, a win is something that all of the South African citizens need right now in the scourge of load reduction. For those who have stayed with us and be with us right here on Mzansi Affairs, thank you so much. Please catch us on the same time and same place right here. My name is Moeketsi, and I was with Mr. Jabulani on the line. We would like to say, if you would like a continuation and, get more depth of what we're speaking about, you can go and search for Minister Josiento Ramokgopa's brief, the media, to provide updates on electricity-related matters and matters that can concern you. You can go and search that so that we can get more and make sure that we are living in an electrified, sustained country as we would like to wish. So, Mr. JP, thank you so much for joining me, and we would like to say we will continue this conversation next week.
Thank you more, and thank you to our viewers and our listeners at home, and then we hope next week we'll continue and engage in such issues.
Thank you so much, guys. Before we close, please do make sure that you engage with us on our social media platforms. We are shared online on each and every social media platform. And if you would like to leave your comment or call us on our WhatsApp line and leave your voice note, the number to dial it's 061 524 7758. 061 524 7758. From me, I would like to say peace out and have a beautiful the rest of your day.